It's the waning days of the traditional summer in the United States, just before the Labor Day holiday. We find ourselves in Antonito, Colorado, at the southern end of the San Luis Valley, where time seems to have no meaning. It's the Victorian Iron Horse Roundup, a celebration of steam locomotion constructed in the latter half of the 19th century. We're at the eastern termini of the Cumbres and Toltec Scenic Railroad, where its historic coal and oil burning locomotives find themselves being looped to head back into the Conejos range of the San Juan Mountains on the eastern rim of the Colorado Plateau. But we are not gathered here today to see these venerable locomotives that normally ply this sinuous steel trail. We pass these blunt-styled workhorses of the Denver and Rio Grande Western. Even the indigenous locomotives of this line that were built in the latter years of the Victorian era are styled in a Spartan fashion of the early 20th century. No, today our gaze falls upon the oldest locomotives to take to these rails recently, the Eureka and Glenbrook. These workhorses of the Silver State were born of the Baldwin Locomotive Works of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania in 1875 and whisked across the American West to Nevada. 440 American-type Eureka came to the Great Basin, becoming the fourth locomotive of the Eureka and Palisade, where it hauled silver ore and passengers between its namesake cities, or at the latter it would interchange with the transcontinental main line of the Southern Pacific. The locomotive would become the property of a logging operation before ending in the hands of Warner Brothers Studios, where it would star in movies with Jimmy Stewart, Ricardo Montalban, and even in John Wayne's final film. The Eureka would be relegated to a western theme park off of Boulder Highway near Las Vegas until a fire destroyed the location, leaving the Eureka in the hands of Dan Markoff, a Las Vegas-based lawyer who would spend the next few years painstakingly restoring the locomotive to its factory-fresh appearance. The Glenbrook, a 260 Mogul-type locomotive, would be delivered further west to the Ponderosa Forest in the foothills of the Sierra on the eastern shores of Lake Tahoe, just west of Carson City, where she was built for the Carson and Tahoe Lumber and Fluming Company, hauling logs to be milled into timbers, floated by flume to Carson City, and then pulled up the ever more famous Virginia and Truckee Railway and used for the expansive mining operations around Virginia City. After the exhaustion of timber around the eastern shores of Tahoe, the locomotive traveled to the opposing shore, where it hauled passengers from the Southern Pacific trains at Truckee, up the Truckee River to Tahoe City. When this line was standard gauged in 1926 by the new owners at the SP, the Glenbrook was conveyed to the Nevada County Narrow Gauge in 1937 to serve as a parts source until the line's demise in 1942. Owned by the Nevada State Museum and now part of the Nevada State Railroad Museum's collection, it was brought back to operation after a lengthy restoration that concluded in May 2015 after sitting cold for 89 years. As these two locomotives do not feature the ubiquitous knuckle couplers on their pilots that are seen on every other piece of railroad equipment since the dawn of the 20th century, the Eureka and Glenbrook would be joined semi-permanently for the roundup, as the only time they could be connected was under the blue flag protection, as the link and pin drawbars are notoriously dangerous. Meanwhile, the rear of the Glenbrook was equipped with a knuckle coupler, allowing it to join up with any piece of equipment on the property. We begin the first day of action on Sunday, the 22nd of August, high up on the lava escarpment above Antonito and Hangman's Trestle, as we watch the train making its way among the plains of sagebrush along the western rim of the San Luis Valley, a territory not unlike the original Eureka and Palisade in north-central Nevada, whence the number 4 came from. We watch as these timber-devouring ladies climb atop the ridge and head along the igneous cap mesa below the shield of Mount San Antonio towards their first belly up to the bar for water at Lava Tank. With their tiny cisterns topped off by a portable water car at the lava loop, the woodburners streak across the wide panorama of the San Luis Valley, Mount Blanca, and the great sand dunes in the far distance. Having navigated the Whiplash Curve, an engineering marvel that helps prevent navigating a steep grade up the draw here at Bighorn, the train finally comes back to meet us at the Y, today's furthest point on this journey.
You guys see him?
Yeah.
Dropping down from Gravity Hill, we're just west of Hangman's Trestle, where we find the train drifting towards Anito with the daily passenger train hot on its heels. On Wednesday the 25th, we're alongside the railroad west of Anito, where we watch the two pulling a modified consist. The resplendently green immigrant sleeper car 470 has been dropped, and an open gondola added between the boxcar carrying the restroom facilities, creating an even truer mixed consist. we leave the valley-floored hangmans and race up to the top of Gravity Hill, where the two slice the bleeding edge of the lava ridge line. Back to Bighorn once again, we watch the pair steaming off the Whiplash Curve in the distance. At Bighorn, numerous run-bys are performed for the crowds. Before ducking into the Y to clear it for the daily train, the Eureka and Glenbrook pull next to the siding where they're watered and fueled. Each piece of felled timber is loaded, by hand, into the waiting tenders of these ladies. A human chain needed to service these. One can quickly see why this fuel source was quickly eschewed for oil and coal, as these tiny locomotives would gorge upon the wood.
Wait!
Soon, it's time to head back into the Y, where they clear for their bigger, younger sister. The Cumbres and Toltecs Authentic Denver and Rio Grande Western 489. Built for this trackage here in Colorado and New Mexico, passes the visiting locomotives from Nevada. With the daily train in the clear, the Eureka and Glenbrook ease onto the main line and back towards the yard limit boards, and perform a couple of more run-bys as the shadows of the day march their way eastward. Of course, the Victorian Iron Horse Roundup would continue through the week, but as the roundup had been delayed due to the prior year's problems, I too had engagements from the year before that had been postponed that would take me from the land of enchantment early the next morning. We return from our trip and are back in Chama, and the next day we find the Glenbrook moving around the yard. The prior day's run up from Chama to Cumbres was fraught with problems, but the locomotives were still warm. Glenbrook was moved around the yard during the later afternoon before the 168 and 425 would end up taking the historic passenger consist over the mountain to Antietam in the dark Rocky Mountain night. And so, we witnessed its final moves to the water tank and through the yard before she would put away after the roundup, before shipment, back to the Nevada State Railroad Museum at Carson City. Hey, I'm not saying the pandemic was rough, but
I like trains. Haha! They said I could never teach a llama to drive.